NuShell is the first shell that I can see a lot of use cases for, where even if you don't want it installed as your main shell, you probably want it installed alongside it. At least that's the way I've been running it. If you don't know what NuShell is, it promises to be both a programming language and a full-featured shell, but it really excels at structured data. In fact, if you like that about PowerShell, you're going to love NuShell. So let's see what makes it so powerful right after you subscribe. The first thing to know is it's installable on all operating systems. I got mine through Homebrew. As I said, it's not my main shell, so I can type in new to access it. Welcome to NuShell. Now, the main aspect of NuShell is that all commands output structured data. We can see that really quickly with the list command here. We get a nice and formatted table. Now, don't worry, formatted tables isn't the killer feature. It's just part of NuShell's data capabilities. It's how we can interact with this data that makes NuShell really powerful. Say I wanted this data to be sorted largest to smallest based on that size column. Well, since the ls command outputs data, we can then actually pipe this into our next command, where we use the built-in sort by command. We'll pick our column of size. Now, sort by actually sorts from smallest to largest by default, but again, it outputs data, so we can then pipe that outputted data into the reverse command. Hit enter, and as easy as that, we now have our files sorted from largest to smallest. Now, I am aware that there are commands that could have done this file size example, but remember, this is a simplified demo of working with data in NuShell. That could have been any data in that table. There's also more power to this than there seems. It's actually aware that that size column there is a file size type, and it's been able to sort it correctly. Instead, what you might see some other tools do is they use a string or number sort, which can mean that values like 577 bytes actually get ranked ahead of 26.8 kilobytes. We can actually see the types it's picked up by piping it into the describe command. As you can see, we have a table where that name column is a string, but then the size column is of type file size, and then modified there is actually a date under the hood, but it's displaying it to us in a nice human readable way. So the power of NuShell is the fact that all commands output structured data, and that it has tons of built-in ways to help you manipulate that data. We just saw sorting, so let's take a look at filtering. If we go ahead and use the processes command here, you can see that Nu has actually changed the processes command to show you all processes, not just the active ones. This is because we can then go ahead and filter this data. So we take the processes command, which obviously outputs our data. We can then use the where command. We can say where our status here is equal to running, and then we can hit enter. There we go, our table is now sorted for just the running processes. Nu actually provides a load of built-in commands for filtering, like any, first, find, every, and loads more. So we've been able to sort and filter our data, but what can we do with this data after that? Well, luckily, NuShell has a command to output the data into pretty much any format that we want. If we take our previous command, we can go ahead and pipe this data, and we can say to JSON. There you go, we get it in nice structured JSON. We can change this to something like CSV, and you can also use YAML as well, and there's loads of formats. The support for these formats doesn't just end there though, it's actually able to load in these data formats as well. So we go ahead and load in our package.json by using the open command. You can see it outputs a nice structured table, and now we're able to work with this with NuShell commands. So we go ahead and open our package.json again, so we get the output out. I can type in something like get version here, and that will get the version number, which in our case is 1.0.0. Obviously, that's a very simplified demo, but we're able to load in data of pretty much any format and work with it with any of the NuShell commands, including those that I've just showed you. Another way we can use the output of NuShell is with the in variable. This is always assigned to the output of the previous command, and it's super handy when you want to work with a command that takes in multiple arguments, but still control where the output is placed, especially for commands that aren't NuShell built-ins. If we take our list command, for example, let's say I wanted to filter this where our size is greater than 20 kilobytes, you can see I get 2 results back. Let's say I just wanted 1 result, so I can take the first by piping that in. And let's say I just want the name of that as well, so I'll say get name. There we go, we now have large.json. Let's say I wanted to copy this file somewhere. What I can do is I can pipe this into the copy function, but copy actually takes in multiple arguments. So how do I place large.json where I want it? Well, luckily we can just use $in. As I said, this is assigned to the output of the previous command, which in our case is get name, so it's equal to large.json. Now I can go ahead and just copy this wherever I want. So I can say large2.json, and there you go. As you can see, it's copied that over. Now, another cool trick that we could actually do with that in variable is we can treat it as an object. So if I instead change the command that we have, instead of doing get name here, what I can do is once we have the first, so we have name, type, size, and modified, I can simply say $in, but then I can just use .name instead, and I'll change this to large.3 to stop an error happening. There we go, the exact same effect has occurred. Again, just so many awesome user experience features when working with structured data. Another one of those great features is that it has really helpful error messages. If I go ahead and take that last command that we ran, let's say I mistyped name here and just put nam and hit enter. You can see it underlines specifically where that error occurred, and it even says, did you mean name? So it's really handy when you're writing out complex commands that it gives you such detailed error messages. Talking about complex commands though, the explore feature is going to really help you out. If I type in explore here and hit enter, we get taken to this help page. If I go ahead and type in :try, we get taken to this nice interactive REPL. If I type in a command here, like the processes one, you can see the output of that command is then shown in this table here, which I can then navigate using the keyboard and go down through all of the values and also across through all of the columns. What's cool about this though is I can now iterate on this function up here. So I can say something like where our memory is greater than 10 megabytes and hit enter, and then the output is updated. So this is super handy when you're building out those complex commands. You don't have to go up in your history and then keep adding pipes to it. We can just work on it in this interactive view. Now the explore command can also be used to take in output data. So if I exit out of this and then I run ls, but then pipe that value into explore here, you can see that it opens up the interactive table view. There's loads of powerful commands for working with structured data in NuShell. That's why I absolutely love it when developers document that work. If we take the list command, for example, we can just append --help and hit enter. Once you do that, you get a load of examples on how you can use that command in NuShell. So you can see it shows some quite powerful ones here, like listing only the names of all directories in your home directory, which haven't been modified in 7 days. You can see that command is quite complex, where it's actually using the date command, but then you can just minus 7 days of date now. So you can actually do this in a human readable way. Super cool. Another great thing we can do is we can simply type in help commands here and hit enter, and it shows you all of the NuShell commands along with what they do. As you can see, there's 432 of them. Even cooler, we can simply press F1. That opens up this view here where we can type in a command like ls, and then we can use the keyboard to navigate down to some of these examples. And when we do that, we can just hit enter on the one we want, and it pre-fills it for us, and we can go ahead and run that. There we go, that is an introduction to NuShell. It really is a superb tool for working with structured data. It has loads more commands for things like working with strings, lists, tables, and records, as well as the ability to create custom commands and install plugins. Let me know in the comments what you think and if you'd heard of NuShell before. Subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.